Hi everybody and welcome to STEM School. Today we're going to dive into the world of algebra, and in this introductory video I'm going to explain the algebra basics for you guys to understand before we move on to the examinable questions in the next lot of videos. So it's important to know this stuff before we move on. So we'll start with the first aspect, which is what is algebra, okay? So I've used algebra for many years in my engineering degree, and it really isn't anything to be scared of. You know, the more practice you get, the easier it will be, like anything, of course. In algebra, we tend to deal with letters as well as numbers, and the useful thing about this is that letters will cancel out and make complex calculations easier. So we tend to deal with common letters like x, y, and z, so we can have something like 4x, just like that. But what we need to appreciate is that this is the same as writing 4 times x, but we just condense it into 4x form like that. And then we could have another letter, can be any letter, let's do minus 2y squared. So it doesn't have to be a letter to the power of 1, it can be any power. So this is the same as writing minus 2 times y squared. Now lastly, let's do a single letter, let's do z. So what we need to appreciate is that there's an imaginary 1 in front of the z. So this could be written as 1 times z, okay, but we just write it as a single letter. So a bit of terminology to take forward is that these things on the left hand side, the 4x and minus 2y squared and the single z, these are called terms. Okay, that's something we're going to hear a lot. Alright, so let's do something useful then. So we'll move on to rule 1, which is about adding and subtracting in algebra. So this rule states that you can add or subtract like terms, so like terms being an x and an x, or a y and a y, but you can add or subtract with different terms. So you can add or subtract an x term and a y term because those are different terms. So we'll fly through some examples to illustrate this. Let's do x plus x. So from this rule we can see that we can add them because these are like terms. We've got two x terms here, so this will just be 2x. So imagine there's a 1 in front of the single letter. Now let's do 4a minus 3a. When you work this out, these are two like terms, so we can add or subtract them. So it'll be 4 take away 3 is a single 1, and that will just be a as the final answer. Now let's step it up a little bit. Let's do 2x plus 3y plus 6x plus 7y. So here we've got two different letters. We've got an x and a y. So we can only add or subtract like terms, and we can add or subtract different terms. So the easiest way to tackle this is just by separating them into brackets, for instance. You don't have to do this, but to make it easier for you to understand, we can separate the x's into a bracket, 2x plus 6x here, and then we've got the two y terms. We can do plus 3y plus 7y, and just deal with each bracket individually. The more you progress, you don't have to write this line and separate it into brackets, okay? It's just when you're starting off, it's just easier to understand what is going on. So let's deal with the first bracket. It will be 2x plus 6x, and that will be 8x. And then deal with the y bracket. Let's do 3y plus 7y, and that will just be 10y. And that's the final answer, because we can't simplify this as we can't add or subtract like terms, okay? Now let's go on to the next question. We'll do 6t squared plus 4t minus t minus 3t squared. So here we've got different powers we're dealing with, okay? So we've got a t, a single t to the power of 1, and then we've got a t to the power of 2. So we can only add or subtract the t's together and then the t squares together, okay? So write it in brackets so it's easier to understand. Let's do the t squareds, okay? So what we have here is 6t squared, okay, coming from here, and then we're going to deal with this t squared. 6t squared take away 3t squared, okay? Then we're going to do plus 4t minus t, and that's a single bracket for that. So we'll deal with each bracket individually. So 6t squared take away 3t squared, well that will just be 3t squared, because it's 6 take away 3. And then what do we have? We've got 4t take away t. So 4 take away 1 essentially, so that will be 3. So it'll be 3t squared plus 3t as the final answer. So hopefully you guys have a good grasp of that rule, and we'll move on to rule 2 now. And rule 2 is about multiplying in algebra. So this rule states that you can actually multiply like terms and different terms together. And to work these questions out, what you do is you multiply the numbers in front of the letters, and then you multiply any like letters using the rules of indices. So what you have here is you're multiplying two like letters, the a's, and you just add the powers. So m plus n. And then I've also written two different rules here. So you have any letter to the power of 0 is equal to 1, and any letter to the power of 1 is equal to a. So we'll do a couple of examples to show how to work these questions out. So first of all, we'll do 6x, and we're going to multiply it by 2y, and multiply that by 3x. So as before, I prefer separating into brackets just so you show what's going on, but you don't have to do this in the exam, okay? So we can separate into a bracket of an x letter and then the y letters, okay? So we can do 6x, then the other term with x is the 3x. So we're going to do 6x multiplied by 3x, and then you're going to multiply it by 2y, okay? Just to show you what's going on. And following this rule, what we do is you multiply the numbers in front of the letters. So 6 times 3 is 18. And here we're going to multiply the x times the x. So using this rules of indices, which is a like letters multiplying, right? So what you're doing is x to the power of 1 plus 1, because you have to imagine a 1 here and a 1 here, okay? And here we're going to multiply it by 2y. So this will be 18x squared multiplied by 2y, okay? So let's continue on. All you do is you multiply the numbers in front of the letters. So 18 times 2, and that's 36. And then you have x squared y, okay? You can't simplify that further. So these are two different letters with the powers, okay? And then let's do one last example. Let's do x to the power of 5 multiplied by 10x multiplied by 2y multiplied by 3y squared. So let's do the same thing. Let's separate it into two brackets of the two different letters. We have an x and a y. So we'll have an x bracket here. So we'll have x to the power of 5 multiply by 10x. Then we'll do the y bracket. So 2y minus 3y squared. Okay. So let's deal with the first bracket. So we have x to the power of 5 times 10x. So you multiply the numbers in front of the letters. So we have 1 times 10. That will just be 10. Now we have to multiply the letters with the powers. We're multiplying the same letter, okay? So we can use the rules of indices. So it'll be 10x to the power of 5 plus 1. And here we're going to do 2y times 3y squared. So 2 times 3, and that will be 6. And there'll be y to the power of 1 plus 2, so it'll be 1 plus 2, using the rules of indices in the same way. So it'll be 10x to the power of 6, and you're going to multiply that by 6y cubed. Okay, now what we do is the same thing. You multiply the numbers in front of the letters, so it'll be 10 times 6, and that'll be 60. There'll be x to the power of 6 y cubed. Okay, and it's simple as that. This time we're going to move on to dividing in algebra. So this is very similar to the previous rule. So what we need to do is multiply the numbers in front of the letters, and then you multiply any like letters using the rules of indices. So for this rule, when you're dividing like letters, so we've got two a's here you're dividing, all you do is you take away the powers, okay? Then I've also written the same rules as I did before for reference. So we'll do a couple of examples. We'll do 30x squared, and we're going to divide that by 2x. So following this rule, you just divide the numbers in front of the letters. So 30 divided by 2 is 15. And now we're going to deal with the letters. So here we need to use the rules of indices, and we've got like letters. So it'll be 15x to the power of 2, take away 1, because we're having a 1 here, okay? And then this will just be 15x as a final answer. Let's do one more example. We'll do 16x cubed, y, okay? So make it a little bit more complicated. We're dealing with another letter, okay? So in the denominator we have x, 8x squared, y. So just like before, you divide the numbers in front of the letters, so it'll be 16 divided by 8, you'll get 2. So you dealt with the numbers. Let's deal with the first letter, which is a x. So here we do the same rules of indices. You will have to take away 3, take away 2, okay? And then we have the y. So we have to imagine a 1 here, so just be 1, take away 1. Just using this rule as before. And let's simplify this. So this will be 2x. And then 3 take away 2 is 1, so it'll be 2x to the power of 1. And then y to the power of 1 take away 1 is just y to the power of 0. And that's where this rule comes in. So any letter to the power of 0 is equal to 1. So this will just be 2x as the final answer. Alright, so that's everything for this video, folks. Do join me in my next video as we tackle multiplying out single brackets, so we can actually start doing some examinable questions on the algebra topic. And as always, please do like and subscribe for tutorials, exam questions and student advice.